This was very out of the blue. DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Arizona Cardinals for a 4th second-round pick and David Johnson. David Johnson, who has a big running back contract. I think the 3rd highest paid running back in the league right now behind Todd Gurley and Zeke. So he goes in that trade to Houston.
I don't understand that trade.
Which I don't think anyone understands that trade if you look at it. Houston, again, they have traded so much as it is already, dealing for draft picks for Laramie Tunsil, trading away Clowney and really getting nothing back from the Seahawks the way they did. So it was they've been operating without a GM, a real GM.
Well, they have a GM. They have a GM.
Well,
they
a
have
real
O'Brien.
GM. Real GM.
They have O'Brien.
He's the coach.
Yeah, he's running the organization now, which I think is, as you know, the only coach we've seen over the years that has taken over a team as the coach and as the GM, and that was successful in the NFL, is Bill Belichick. Besides him, tell me a GM and coach that's taken over a team, a.k.a. Adam Gase, that was doing it for the Jets for a little while before Joe Douglas came in. Tell me one that's been successful.
And I don't think Bill O'Brien necessarily deserves that kind of power right now. He's been a very average head coach in his, 6 years with the Texans. So I don't understand that at all. And then the other big trade, DeForest Buckner to the Colts for the number 13 overall pick, the Colts' only first-round pick. I love this trade for both teams. Indianapolis gets a big defensive lineman they've needed for a while, and the Niners can get a first-round pick to help out other positions. As great of a player as Buckner is, they have a lot of offensive line or defensive linemen already. So you can up the receivers, up the corners with all the depth of those two positions in the draft. Get an interior offensive lineman maybe with your later pick, and you can take something bigger later. Maybe you could trade up. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe with this Garoppolo rumors, maybe it's a quarterback they like. I don't know.
What's going on with the 49ers? This is a team that was a Super Bowl contender, and some people said needed to make 1 or 2 moves in the offseason, and they would be a Super Bowl contender again this year. Now they trade off one of their best defensive linemen for practically nothing. I don't understand it. Some of these trades that we've seen so far early in the season, early in the offseason, have not been good trades. Not for any of the organizations.
So you don't like this for the Niners?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Why? You liked it?
I don't mind it because I think they can improve at other positions. They have Bosa, D. Ford, Solomon Thomas. They have enough up front where I don't think they really need to worry about that. And Buckner would have wanted a lot of money. I have to look up what the contract he was given to by the Colts was, but he would have wanted a lot of money, and then obviously those guys are going to want to get paid eventually too. D. Ford already did get paid, and Bosa's going to get paid.
D. Ford got overpaid. He got
As of right now, yes, because he was injury prone this year, but he's still a good pass rusher. So as a result, I think they could use that pick and help out another position. If they get a big name receiver, that could really boost that offense big time. They get a corner alongside Richard Sherman, which they were able to get. Again, they get some offensive line, even better offensive line. So there's a lot of different things they could do with that pick, because there's a lot of depth in the draft where they have so much depth of the D-line, so I actually do like it for them. I like it more for the Colts, but I like it for the Niners too.
It's very, very interesting. And I know a lot of people can't wait until free agency absolutely opens up. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday is the first time they can actually sign. I think it's Wednesday at 12.
Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And to me, as a fan, some of my teams, a.k.a. the New York Jets, or you're the Giants, this is not good. This is not a good sign for the New York Jets. The Jets wanted Conklin. He was their number one target. He didn't get such a big contract. He got a 3-year, $40-something million contract.
3-year, 42.
That's not a lot of money for an offensive lineman, a top offensive lineman. If you know offensive lineman, the kid who came from the Patriots last
3 so far. He struggled a little last year, the 2018 season, but that was really it. He's been very good beyond that. So it's surprising that he would have kind of not necessarily lowballed completely, but didn't get as much as he would have, especially for a younger.
It's me off as a New York Jet fan, knowing that the Jets are they're going to be behind the 8 ball early this offseason, trying to get an offensive line or trying to build an offensive line in front of Sam Darnold. To me, this is bad news as a Jet fan, and really throughout the NFL, because now you're starting to hear players sign with other teams, or they're trying to make trades. Why did the Jets go after Hopkins? Why did the Giants go after Hopkins? This guy was available. What did the Texans get for Hopkins?
You had traded the best receiver in football for a guy that maybe could fit with Bill O'Brien, and now you're making the fragile Will Fuller and the very streaky Kenny Stills your best receiving options.
It's so... When you think about where the New York Jets are as an organization and what the Jets wanted to do this offseason and adding offensive line talent, there really isn't that much left. As we were talking about the Indianapolis Colts offensive lineman signed Costanzo. Costanzo, he signed back with Indianapolis. He was the second best offensive lineman available this offseason. And then Conklin, who was the number one target for practically everybody, he decides to go to the Browns. And the Browns, let's be honest, you don't know where their coaching is going to be. You don't know what this team is all about. You don't even know if Odell Beckham's going to be a part of the team. Or half the players are going to be involved with the team. Now that you think you bring in Conklin, you're probably going to keep Odell Beckham. That's what I would think.
Interesting. You wonder if he took a pay cut maybe for them to keep Odell too.
I have no idea. But I will tell you this. Odell Beckham will be staying with the team. They're expecting to win again this year. They are. They had one of the best offensive linemen available, if not the best offensive lineman available. And now you're starting to build. You have two of the most talented offensive wide receivers in the league, and Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. And then you have the running game. You still have Kareem Hunt, and I do believe they're probably going to bring Kareem Hunt back because I haven't heard anything that anybody was interested in Kareem Hunt. You can get him on the low. You could probably get him for 1.5 or $2 million a year. And you get one of the best running backs in the league for nothing.
See, that should have been something the Texans could have gambled on rather than...
That's what I would say.
Rather than trying to deal your best receiver and get a running back that hasn't been good in 3 years.
Unless they think David Johnson's still a star or he's still going to find a way, or maybe he fits O'Brien's offense better than maybe Hopkins did. I can't see it. Hopkins had a great season for the last 3 or 4 years under O'Brien, and he's been their only offensive talent besides Watson.
Right. But here's the thing. You could have gotten that without having to trade Hopkins either. The Cardinals are practically gifting David Johnson away. They were probably only going to get a 4th or 5th round pick for it. That's something you do in a heartbeat. You don't need to make all this deal all together. You put Johnson and Hopkins together, that'll help each other out in a sense if David Johnson can get his 2015 and 2016 form back.
Hooper has a new team. He's playing for the Browns. And that's interesting.
Was a bizarre deal too.
But here's the thing. You're adding another offensive weapon for Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield now has not one, but 2 great tight ends. He has 2 great wide receivers. He has 2 great running backs still on this roster. And then they're building, which their weakness last year was their offensive line. Oh, by the way, we added the best offensive line talent available in this offseason. Now they're starting to build. Now, their defense was not really that good last year. And I think that had a lot to do with Greg Williams going to the New York Jets. You can see the difference of that defense when Greg Williams went to the New York Jets. But this is still a very talented defensive team. They still have talent on that defensive line. Their secondary needs some work, and they added some secondary help in last year's draft. And they still have a lot of draft stock in this year's coming draft. So I don't trust what they're doing as far as their GM and their office as an organization. But this move for Conklin, I was very surprised when you just told me Conklin signed with the Browns, or he's starting with the Browns, why Conklin picked them instead of some of the other teams, Super Bowl contending teams that he could have went to. They weren't the only team that was interested in Conklin. And I'm not talking about the Jets. There were other
Arizona probably should have been too.
Green Bay too. Green Bay was very interested in Conklin, I was reading. Also, there were other teams that probably would have been available to get him if he became available or they offered him more money. So I'm very surprised that the Browns won that deal. And they got him on the cheap.
Well, what's interesting with the way the Browns have operated so far is they're purging some defensive assets, but they're really just loading up on offense. And maybe they're trusting whoever this new defensive coach is, or I guess their star players really just to go off to be able to do the rest. Now, it's interesting. If they were to have that kind of approach, I'm surprised they wouldn't have tried to hire a more defensive coach and try to trust the talent of your offense to go off and just hire a good offensive coordinator. Because you lost Christian Kirksey, a good linebacker. He signed with the Packers earlier today, 2 years, $16 million. Joe Schobert's still a free agent. And your interior defensive line is iffy, and you might still lose Myles Garrett, depending on what happens with him in terms of his suspension. So
here's another thing: the Bucs signed JPP, which is very, very weird. JPP hasn't played
27. Yep.
Yeah, he hasn't played in about a year and a half because of the car accident that he just had. Which I think he broke his back or some part of his back, and they're bringing him back now. Obviously, they think that JPP has a lot left in his tank. And before he hurt himself, he had 13 and a half sacks. He was a Pro Bowl player that year. But you're bringing back a guy that you gave him a lot of money. You gave him, I think...
13 and a half per year. Yeah.
13 and a half per... I don't know what guaranteed money he's going to get out of that deal. He's probably going to get half of that guaranteed. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a player that hasn't been on the field for almost 2 years.
You wonder if that's something too where they're trying to maybe do a bridge gap because the way the Bucks defense is structured, they're young in their secondary, so they're trying to beef up the veterans in the front seven more than anything else. And you need the veteran presence with the 3-4 defense. Shaq Barrett, we'll see what we get again. They put the franchise tag on him. Will he have another great year in a row? You still got good linebacker talent. You still got a good nose tackle in Vita Vea. So it's definitely interesting the way they're going. But I think they just needed a veteran presence. Otherwise, their defense would have been all young all at once.
Well, here's a big deal. And I love this deal for the Dolphins. 3 years, $30 million for Eric Flowers.
And the Dolphins are back to being the Dolphins.
3 years, $30 million for Eric Flowers. This is the same Eric Flowers that played for the Giants?
Barely. Yeah, he had one season where he played well. That was it.
The same guy that played for the Redskins last year?
Who actually was decent with the Redskins last year. As much as it pains me to admit.
Eric Flowers just got a 3-year, $30 million contract. From the Dolphins.
Just when we thought the Dolphins were trying to actually get young and rebuild properly, they go back to their old ways of overpaying random players.
It doesn't make any sense. To me, you look at this deal, and it scares me because they built, going into this year's draft, they traded away all their top players, their top young players to really go in hard in this year's draft. And they have a ton of draft picks this year.
And
next year.
How much would they have had to pay Laramie Tunsil if he had to sign right away? What, $3-4 million more? What would have been his market value? And then yet you pay Eric Flowers double digits per year and probably almost half of that guaranteed.
It doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God.
None of it makes sense. And that's the Dolphins.
It's laughable.
Well, that's the problem with the AFC East, and it's laughable. And I know that's why Tom Brady really doesn't want to leave the AFC East, but I think he's on his way out of the AFC East.
You think he's still going to the Raiders?
I don't even know if it's the Raiders. I could see. I've been hearing the Bucs now. I've been hearing a lot with the Bucs, and the Bucs are willing to give him a significant contract. Up to about $32-33 million a year.
Wow.
So, and if the Bucs are trying to do that, obviously Bruce Arians is trying to win a championship now, not later. So, and maybe Tom Brady, especially in that division where he's going to have a chance. Now he's going to the NFC, so it's going to be completely different. It's going to be completely different, and I don't know if Tom is willing to go to a team where, when you look at the division, it's still a winnable division because you just don't know where that division is going to lie. There are good teams in that division. There's no question that there is, especially in the NFC. But Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and with the offensive players that they have around to his disposal, that could completely change everything for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
2 really good receivers, 2 really good tight ends. The question is, how will that offensive line fare up for Brady? Because it's good inside, but their tackles are very weak too. So that's another team that is going to have to search for an offensive lineman if they do want to get older quarterback.
And they probably
Brady.
will do that in the draft. They'll probably build around their offensive line in the draft. No, and especially if you know Tom Brady is going there. Now,
if Tom Brady that goes there, I think there's no choice. You have to build through the offensive line in the draft. If it's a more mobile, even if it's a veteran quarterback, then you have a little more leeway to do it later in the draft or maybe some bargains in free agency.
This is a very, very interesting offseason. Phillip Rivers, the stories are coming out right now that Indianapolis is going to make a move and make an offer to him, which I'm not surprised. Indianapolis do not believe in Jacoby Brissett. I don't think me and you believed in Jacoby Brissett. Okay? So he got a lot of money last offseason because he had a great season the year before, and they thought that he was the quarterback that can hold the fort for at least 2 or 3 years before they draft a quarterback, and I believe Indianapolis will draft a quarterback.
Well, they traded the pick to do so they have to do it in the second round now.
Yeah, but to me, you're going to probably get a quality quarterback in the second round. There are some good quarterbacks, and just like they say, this is covered with great wide receivers and great corners, and some really good offensive linemen that are going to be available, guards and interior linemen that are going to be available in the second and third round. The problem here is, I understand what you're saying. There might not be a Tua there, but who's to say that Indianapolis won't move up after moving out of the first round to move up to get a quarterback?
It usually is hard to do that because then
they could get if they can get a pick at number 30 or number 29 to get a quarterback, they can absolutely do that.